And if you're watching on the AFA Today channel, that is the Columbus Circle here in Manhattan. We're coming to you live from Lower Manhattan. Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us. In the shadow of the Freedom Tower just north of Trinity Cemetery and across the street directly from the newly opened to the public. It was open for family members and victims' friends briefly for about a week, but now open to the public, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, and we're glad that you're with us from the AFA Today studios in New York City. I'm Kevin McCullough. Well, you've heard the news being made. It is I guess the end result that everybody was wanting to have happen. If only we could get Eric Shinseki to resign, then obviously we would have fixed the Veterans Administration's problems. So now it's happened. And I don't know that the problems are fixed. We will see in the days to come, but if you missed the top of the hour newscast, Mr. Shinseki unveiling some what he hopes are some remedies for some of the problems, particularly in the Phoenix VA, and then giving his resignation to the president who, let me be clear, I don't want to see him go, but it's important that we not lose track of time, so we will now let the general go and move on. And so I will too. Because America, there isn't anything to see here. There isn't any fundamental thing that's been fixed. Right now, we have an engorged federal government that is choking to death on its own girth, and that's the problem. That's the problem. When you have something like the VA scandal and all that it's entailed and so forth, and then you hear that they're rolling over $400 million a year for the last 5 years, and they didn't solve problems, shame on them. Shame on them. So we don't know what's next, but the thing that everybody was trying to get done, get Mr. Shinseki to resign, it's happened. And we'll see if anything gets fixed. The real tragedy in this is that you have dead veterans that litter the hallway of this scandal. Their corpses are the paving stones to this administration's refusal to take action or to do anything about this, to kind of like, as most of the administration's problems have been dealt with, we'll just ignore it and hope it goes away. That's how they, okay, well, just, hear no evil, see no evil. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. But if you want to weigh in on it, you can. 888-589-8840. That's the big news of the day. It shouldn't be. You know what should? What should be the big news of the day is that Catherine Herridge filed a report this morning for Fox News that indicates that according to the early first orders of business among the select committee on Benghazi, they're starting to get down to work. And she writes, but it is already apparent to some committee members that previous investigations, including the State Department review known as the Accountability Review Board, were not nearly as exhaustive as the administration claimed. Congressman Mike Pompeo from Kansas, if you go look at the other reports that were done, whether it be the Accountability Review Board or the Senate case, last January's Intelligence Committee, there are places where they have enough details, but many, many gaps in the fact pattern. We still don't have all of the facts that surrounded the events of the night. Did the Department of Defense speak to the State Department? Friends, in the initial understanding of the documents that they're going through and their initial work as the Select Committee, there isn't even an answer to that question. Did the State Department talk to the Defense Department while our men were under fire? Forget Mr. Shinseki. Yes, we got to fix the VA. Yes, they've done wrong there. But this, my friend, what they're already uncovering in just the first few hours of work on the Select Committee, that there's these huge gaps in between point A and point B and point C and point D. Mr. Pompeo goes on to say, did the State Department have good contacts with our intelligence operations folks? Where was the White House and its national security staff? That entire team is responsible. We don't know where the White House was. We don't know where the president was. We don't know anything. Catherine Herridge writes, a detailed timeline breaks down into 3 phases, including the well-documented severe threat environment before the attack, as well as the security requests from U.S. personnel in Libya that were denied by the State Department. The State Department denied those security requests. We're going to start from the events that led up to the enormous security failure in the run-up to September 11, 2012. Then we'll look at these events of that evening, the deaths of the 4 Americans, what could have been done to potentially rescue or at least make an effort, as America has always done. And then in the aftermath, what is it that this administration did in the aftermath that didn't provide the American people the real knowledge about actions that took place in the run-ups to the deaths? Congressman Pompeo is also a member of the House Intelligence Committee, indicated further investigation was needed into the administration's explanation immediately after the attack, blaming it on a protest gone awry over this obscure anti-Islamic video. Of course, they sending letters to YouTube in the middle of the attack saying, don't you dare let anybody put anything anti-Islamic on the website. Like they have the right to say anything to a private company like YouTube. In addition, he alluded to the role of the presidential advisor, Ben Rhodes, whose September 14th email stated a goal for the UN ambassador Susan Rice talk show appearances to be to, quote, underscore that these protests are rooted in an internet video and not a broader failure or policy. That's presidential advisor Ben Rhodes. The Rhodes email was obtained by the conservative group Judicial Watch through a federal lawsuit. Freedom of Information Act is what that's called. The congressman said, we know that intelligence analysts on the ground knew instantaneously that this was al-Qaeda. I repeat, we know that intelligence analysts on the ground instantaneously knew that this was al-Qaeda and its affiliates who led this attack. What have I been telling you for 3 months? Maybe 4, maybe longer than that. Defense and CIA, broader intelligence work, they knew within 15 to 20 minutes of the attack beginning that it was al-Qaeda. They knew that from the very start. Mr. Panetta, according to his timeline, calls the president, heads over to the White House. Just a few minutes later, he's informing the president what this is. And then from that point until way, way past where they should have come clean, the president did everything he could. His special advisor did everything he could. His UN ambassador did everything she could. She got a promotion. The Secretary of State, who wants to be your next president of the United States, looked the victims' families in the eye. Friends, do you know what kind of cold, calculated, mean, no good person does that? You look the family members in the eye and you tell them, we're going to get the guy that made the video? Knowing that it's patently false, knowing that it's not true, knowing that it had nothing to do with any of it. Why would you say to the victims' families, we're going to get the guy that made the video? Even the guy that made the video, if it had been a motivation for why they did what they did, it didn't have any connection materially to the people that actually slit the throats and dragged the bodies through the streets of Benghazi. There was no actual connection there. Even if the narrative had been, oh, they were angry because, you know, Muslims are dummies. They can't control their anger when somebody says something that violates their faith. Yeah, Christians and Jews and Buddhists and everybody else, they're able to somehow keep self-control when it comes into somebody criticizing their religion. But, you know, Muslims are animals. This is what the left is acting like. So somebody says something, boom, and a bomb goes off in their brain and they start going nuts. And the left is so insanely crazy because if the Muslims ever did take over, they would kill them first. So they say, well, the video, sorry, we're going to get the guy that made the video. Knowing the whole time in the back of her head, knowing the facts that the Defense Department and the CIA and intelligence analysts, according to the documents that the Select Committee has come up with, knew in advance this was the work of al-Qaeda. 888-589-8840, your reaction to it. The congressman, Mr. Pompeo, continued in his comments with Catherine Herridge. He said, "We know that the intelligence analysts on the ground knew instantaneously that it was al-Qaeda." He said, and yet it took an awfully long time. Indeed, today it's still not clear that this administration has acknowledged the depth and the risks associated with what it means to have an al-Qaeda affiliate actually take down an American consulate. Have you heard anyone discuss that issue? Hey, these rabble-rousers, these little rat-eaters in the streets of Benghazi, these al-Qaeda, brainwashed monsters, they took down a whole consulate. And we haven't done anything about it. Friends, we haven't done anything about it. The guy that organized it sits in cafes in Benghazi to this day, and he gives interviews to press organizations and brags about what he did against America. Mr. Obama, wants to go drone everybody, drone his little backside, displace him from the little coffee shop that he's in. You know what's interesting about this is that this week the president spoke to the West Point cadets, and the coverage universally across the spectrum has been that he was not warmly received. CNN called it icy. And someone was sending around on Facebook last night. And if you go to the Facebook page, I've got this posted. But somebody was sending around last night an A-B comparison of President Bush's last time he was with West Point and President Obama's. And forget the emotion of the cadets receiving the two different commanders-in-chief. You listen to even a minute of the drone that came from our commander-in-chief's mouth about how, well, we will always be a leader in the world. And it's like a defense of his foreign policy, and he's trying to make the case, but nobody's into it, and it's just painful. I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm just trying to be honest. You watch 60 seconds of that, you're like, man, they had to sit through 45 minutes? And then you click over on the last time President Bush was there as commander-in-chief, and everything he said to them was about what an honor it is to serve them, that they have chosen something of valor to do with their lives, that they are appreciated, that there is an element of their will to serve that the nation can never fully thank them for. I mean, the whole balance of the discussion is so different. But you look at the foreign policy of what he's laid out in there. Basically, we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna make decisions. We're gonna wait for other people to kind of step up, and then if they want us to, we'll do something about it. That describes how you get into the VA's problem. That describes how you end up in the night of Benghazi turning into a disaster. It describes how Obamacare goes completely upside down. When you lead from behind, or you view yourself as so intellectual and erudite that you sit and think and you wait until everybody else has made their moves, and then you have no other choice except to take whatever's left, your presidency's a disaster. And evidently the disaster in Benghazi that continues to this day because those terrorists sit in the cafes, drinking their coffee, mocking America, saying that they brought us down. There's not even enough fight in them to go find them and bring them to justice. Don't tell the victims you're going to get the video maker. Tell the victims you're going to go find the guy that did it. Kevin McCullough, AFA Today on AFR Talk.